This podcast provides a platform for our guests to share their experiences and inspire our listeners to be brave and bold in pursuit of their dreams. As you listen, we invite you to explore how these concepts apply to your own story. You know what to do. Be great and be grateful. We're mic'd up with Mike DeChocho. Hey guys, our guest today is recognized by the American Heart Association in their Survivor Gallery with his story, A New Heart for Life. He is an expert at overcoming adversity, from open heart surgery to becoming a ranked Masters track athlete. He is a great leader who sets the example through his perseverance and toughness. Welcome to the show, fitness influencer, Dan Williams.
Great to be mic'd up, Mike. Good to be with you.
Here we are, man. I love it. I love the look. USA right on the chest. He's got the flag here. I know if you guys are listening and you're not seeing Dan, he's about as American as you can get. Proud to be an American, as I am as well. I got a lot of red, white, and blue. A lot of it's Buffalo Bills in my background here, but I'm totally proud to be an American. I know, you know what, there's a lot of talk about adversity. There's a lot of turmoil in the country right now, but at the end of the day, we always got to remember what makes our country great. It really does. And I know a lot of the things that you believe in. I want to talk about that. You've also served. I know your father served and protected our country, so I'd love you to share those stories as well. Mm-hmm. But what I'd like to do is, if you guys are tuning in, maybe you're not too familiar yet with Dan Williams, what we want to do is get you over to newheartforlife.com. And it's very easy. It's New Heart and then the number 4, just the number itself, and then life.com. And on social as well, New Heart number 4 Life on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. He has a business page there for New Heart for Life. And on LinkedIn, he's super active. That's how we actually connected. We linked up on LinkedIn, and you can find him there, Dan Williams. So again, welcome to the show. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Mike. Glad to be here. Honored.
And so let's start right there. I mean, I want to tell your story about when you were literally going in for some testing, and you find out that there's a situation that ends up being life-altering, we'll call it, right? But I want you to tell that story first and foremost, because that kind of sets up how you created the idea for New Heart for Life. So let's talk about that. Okay.
So as a veteran, I went into the Veterans Hospital in Washington, D.C. This was early December. Actually, it was December 1st. Can't get much earlier than that. And I went in for a stent procedure.
Right?
Yeah, right, exactly. I actually remember these dates very well. So, it's the memories are very, very sharp. So 1 December, I can tell you the day I got out as well. And it was a stent procedure. I did have some issues going on the previous week, and they had me on blood thinners. I did have pneumonia at the time. As I went in I was going in as an outpatient. In other words, I anticipated walking out of that hospital that afternoon.
Sure.
And what happened is many complications happened during the procedure. It was, as this was relayed to me later on, Mike, the cardiologist literally stopped everything because I was having multiple heart attacks as he was placing the stents, and called the heart surgeon upstairs, and basically, I'm paraphrasing, but it was something along the lines of, Houston, we have a major problem. Get down here. I'm not sure what to do. I've got a patient that's literally out of control physically, and I'm losing them on the table. Wow. And my heart surgeon was actually teaching a class at the time, so that was put on hold. And came down. They ballooned me up that night to keep me alive, and then I underwent a 9-hour procedure, open heart triple bypass surgery, the following day.
Now, up to that point, obviously you're getting stents into your heart, so you had some complications going on at that time. But leading up to that, do you feel, I know you're super active now. Were you active and pretty fit at that time leading up to your surgery?
Can't say that I was. I've had strides of being in shape. Mostly earlier in my 20s and 30s, I had run 3 marathons and was very active in running, and that was my passion. But what happened is, we all can relate is life took over. I was in sales leadership positions during and before the .com era, and
Sure.
it was just extremely, although exhilarating, it was very stressful along with life. And you know, the priorities of my youth in terms of staying in shape and nutritional habits just really started to fade into the background. So I can't say that I was pretty much the poster child for what the situation of stress,
Yeah.
not having great nutritional habits, and then of course not exercising. So I had the trifecta for why I should have been there. But the stent procedure, I believe that the pneumonia really complicated a lot of things, and certainly the blood thinners later on, as the story evolves, complicated it. But no, I was in shape now, but not in shape going into that procedure.
Yeah, this is what we call a true wake-up call. He's on the table, and things are not going smoothly, right? They had to keep you open a lot longer. Is that correct? And then I know we talked off camera before. You mentioned that one of the surgeons, kind of after the whole situation, and they were talking to you, kind of complimented you, or maybe they were talking to one of your family members, was a daughter maybe that was there, and they said he's fighting, right? Can you share that with us?
Yes.
You're a fighter, man, through and through. But in the moment, you're on the table. You're not even. I mean, you're alive. They're being kept alive, but you're not awake, so you're not really conscious, and you're still fighting. That is just in your DNA. So, what's the doctor say to your daughter?
Well, leading up to that consultation with my daughters and the questions that were asked from my daughters, and my oldest daughter Jackie asked the question leading up to that, coming out of surgery because of the blood thinners, they couldn't close me back up, so I was in an induced coma for 5 days, and it was very, very complicated in terms of just and a lot of internal bleeding. One of my best friends asked, actually, well, what's going on? And my heart surgeon said, well, a heart is supposed to have the feel, even after a surgery like that, right, of a rough, coarse outward skin, something maybe along the lines of a Buffalo Bills football, right? But my heart actually was, he said, felt like cotton candy, and every time he pressed it, blood would ooze out. So they were having a tremendous time with just trying to get that under control. Coupled with the pneumonia, my oxygen levels were all over the map, and that was also of great concern. And these are things they worry about, to prevent after an operation. And my in consultation, as it was relayed to me, to your point, my heart surgeon said that he rarely or ever would ever operate on anyone with one of three conditions. Recent heart attacks, which of course I had, and one blood thinners, or with pneumonia. He would wait, until there was stability with those three, or any one of those three. And while I was in the coma, well, Jackie asked, well, then why did you operate? And he said, because your dad was going to die. So I was very, very brave, courageous heart surgeon that took great risk and pulled it off. And I'm so blessed to have that angel and divine appointment with him and that day. And then, as I was in the coma and there was grave concern, my daughters and Jackie, leading the conversation, said, well, how's my dad doing? Is he going to make it through here? And the doctor said, your dad is fighting. And she said, he's fighting. How do you know that? He goes, I can tell you, I've been in this business for a long time, and he has a will to live, and that is helping his situation. Although he's not consciously aware of it, he is fighting, because right now, most patients would not be able to have been made it through this process to the extent that he has.
Yeah, like I said, man, it's in your blood, it's in your nature, and you've been that way. your story really inspires me. So ends up being a 5-day situation. And then what's your recovery? Are you in there for like a whole nother month recovering and until you can, were you able to walk out the front doors or were you kind of wheeled back to your car? What was that moment like when you finally got out?
Oh gosh, great questions. So I did awaken after 5 days. Another one of my daughters was holding vigil the night before I came out of the induced coma, or they brought me out of it because the blood, then had started to regulate itself, and it was safe to get me back Humpty Dumpty, right? Put me back together again.
Sure.
And as the night before, my daughter whispered in my ear, and I can hear this as sure as we're talking here today with this conversation. And it was just 2 words, but I remember them just so distinctly. And the words were, "Hey, Dad." I remember hearing those words. And then she said that I had squeezed her hand. She went back to the Fisher House where my family was staying, which is shout out to the Fisher House. It's a foundation that's supported for veteran hospitals, adjacent to any hospital for families that have extended stays. And so Lauren went to the
is this in the DC area?
Yeah, it's right smack in Washington, DC, Mike, as a matter of fact. So she went back and said, "Hey, Dad, Dad squeezed my hand." And the next morning I awoke with my wrist tied to the bed rails. I was intubated. I had no clue what had happened, what had transpired. I was not scared. I was literally terrified. It was just a very, very surreal feeling. And so slowly, I did start to come awake and aware. There was like doctors and surrounding my bed. I just remember they were talking me down a little bit. And of course, they had me sedated, so that nothing crazy was going to happen. And then, began the process of recovery, and that recovery process was, I'll never forget. They want to prevent pneumonia going in. And I had double lung pneumonia. And, the x-rays were shown to my daughters and to Karen, my love of my life. And we're all just terrified. And he says, "I've never seen pneumonia this extreme in someone your dad's partner's age." And I was 62 at the time.
I'm going to say, put the world of scene in here for anyone that's listening or watching right now. So you're 62 years old, going into open heart surgery. And that's a surgery that, is, I don't want to say scary, but it's a serious thing for anybody, open heart surgery. And when you're in your 60s, the likelihood of complications is much higher. So now your stent procedure turns into almost a life and death situation on the table. And that was before the issues with bleeding and everything else. Then in that moment, certainly you had a bunch of heroes working on you there, right?
I did. Heroes and angels.
Angels, yeah, exactly. So now, so you're were your daughters living nearby, and you mentioned Karen too, right? So they were staying somewhere, you mentioned. So were they coming in from out of town to be with you?
Let's see. One of them came up from North Carolina at the time. The others were living in town, but in the DC area, like any big metropolitan area. I mean, it was a good hour and a half ride to the hospital. So they were able to stay at the Fisher House. I guess they rotated shifts of sorts. But they were able to stay at the Fisher House while I was going through my ordeal.
Cool. Walk us through, no pun intended, the moment of exiting the hospital when you took that first breath of fresh air again.
Yeah,
How grateful were you for that? Tell us about it.
It was. I was very, very grateful. Now we're looking at December 1st, and now I'm out January 5th. So it was actually a 5 weeks today. And I remember, well, they put me in a rescue squad. They kind of like put me on a gurney and they took me to rehab. And during rehab, I actually was fighting there too, because I did not want to be in rehab. And I acquiesced to my heart surgeon who thought that I should be there. And I didn't want any part of any hospitals, anything. And I did feel like I could, through the grit and the Irish tenacity, get myself there. So I reluctantly went to rehab, and I convinced them. I mean, I didn't convince them. They walked me through the halls, and I was able to get myself out of rehab before it really started. And they knew I wasn't a willing participant. I felt like I could do it on my own, and in fact, I did. They weren't negligent. They put me through every possible test they could to make sure that I could be self-independent. And I as I ran those marathons, I got myself ready for those walks down that long hallway, and that escort was having a hard time keeping up with me. Fake it till you make it, right? But
yeah, you didn't want to show any sign of weakness, because then they're going to say, okay, you got to keep you here another week, right?
Exactly, right, exactly. And to your point, and it was a bit of a seminal moment. Interesting that you should point it out. Karen went to get the car, and I did walk. Now, they did allow me to walk out of the rehab facility. And I remember waiting at the door, and then I went outside the door. And it was, now we're looking now at January 8th, in the midst of a Washington winter. And I just remember a cold Arctic air never felt so great. I just remember that
we do get that here breeze. Too. Again, being in Buffalo, it's like a crisp. Feels fresh. The air feels fresh.
Yeah, and I didn't realize
the lake.
Yeah, it was it was like that, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I was overtaken with emotion. I actually started crying, just because at that moment I realized that I was out of the hospital and that I had made it through a very horrific time, and I was just very blessed and overtaken with emotion.
It's amazing. And going back to your roots too, I want to talk a little bit about your dad and how he kind of raised you to be the man that you became. Something we didn't really talk about off camera yet, so I'm interested in hearing that. And also, again, the red, white, and blue that you wear proudly on your chest. Thank you for your service, first and foremost.
You're welcome.
And for your father as well. Tell our audience about, were you always that patriotic, or is that something that kind of, now that you reflect on it, it's more important to you, or were you like that since you were a kid?
Yeah, I think, my dad was 30 years naval officer. He rose up through the ranks of a sailor, and I think they call them Mustangs, if you do that. I never thought of that word in a long time, Mustang. He kicked us and bucked his way all the way up to a full commander. And we lived on a number of naval bases. So yes, I was always, living around, the armed services, and played, as a kid, was always playing basketball with the sailors. And I do remember moments where my dad was doing a trip. It's funny how you remember certain instances. And a car pulled up into our driveway, and we were seeing him off. I was in the front steps, and a sailor opened up the door for him and gave him the salute as he went into the door. And every time we would go into the base, they would salute. And so, yes, I was steeped in the tradition of military, and my dad served in World War II. He served on the USS Missouri. He actually, was part of what they call, for any of the listeners, there was Pearl Harbor, and then there was a second Pearl Harbor. It didn't get a lot of attention, but it was a sabotage on the battleships, and he was blown off the bow of the ship that he was serving. So,
was that the same week that Pearl Harbor happened, or like?
No, it was sometime later. I'd have to go back and research it, but there is a book on the USS Missouri, and I remember, as they call it, the Mighty Mo, right? The Mighty Mo. And I remember going down to the docks as a 5-year-old. So yes, I mean, I think that military tradition
Mhm.
was ingrained. My mother, and as a naval officer wife, the family, like any military families, the ones that serve certainly, get a lot of recognition, and rightfully so. But the whole family is part of the military tradition. We moved from, we were in Bremerton, Washington, right across from Seattle, Puget Sound,
Mhm.
Newport, Rhode Island. Of course, he served. I was born at the Naval Hospital in Washington, D.C., in Bethesda, Maryland, which is now the Walter Reed Medical Center. They combined Walter Reed. So my family was all military, and when it came time for, I was caught up in this is one of the lotteries that you don't want to win, but for those listeners that can recall back there, or just look it up, 1969, they had a lottery, and based on your birthday would decide if you were going to be, your chances of going into the into the service. So I ended up
It was
getting
Vietnam, right? Vietnam.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was the Vietnam era. It was the first draft lottery, and so I did a tour, 1 year tour in Vietnam, Benoit, Vietnam, and did a tour in Darmstadt, Germany.
Mhm.
And so, and then I went to a military high school. So St. John's, my dad went to St. John's. It's kind of like a family tradition. His brother did. So I went to a military high school. So I was kind of all prepped up to be, in addition to the tradition that we have living in this wonderful country, really seeing the service men and women that were giving their lives, and the families that were sacrificing for our country.
Excellent. I appreciate you articulating that and elaborating on it as well. So it sounds to me like your backstory with your father, your dad in the Navy, you in the service as well through Vietnam, right? That connection, and then your situation with your new heart, right? Built something that's called New Heart for Life, and it's a patriotic. Well, I'll let you explain it, but it kind of feels like your branding came together through your personal experiences. Would you agree with that?
I would. There was, now we're into 2012.
Yeah.
I started to backslide into my old habits, believe it or not,
Wow.
hello, in 2013, 14, 15,
Mm-hmm.
an inner voice came to me one day. My bottom was really an inner voice that whispered, "What
Mm-hmm.
are you doing? What, like you're in extra innings." And this is a message of, what is your bottom, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be what I just talked about. We can all
Mm-hmm.
have different bottoms at different time. And my real bottom was that moment where I knew that I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I knew that I was gifted so freely with a second chance.
Yeah.
And I started to write, just from a cathartic standpoint, what had happened and where I was at. And I wanted to reconnect with my passion of running.
Mm-hmm.
And because I made it that decision that night, pushed myself back from the dinner table. I made that decision that, okay, this is it. I am going to reconnect with my passion, and I'm going to live a fit and healthy life, and be available for my children, my grandchildren, for Karen, and all those that suffered and worried. I'm not letting them down. I'm not letting myself down. I'm not letting my higher power, God, down.
Mm-hmm.
And that decision resulted in me competing in Masters track.
Yeah.
And that Masters is anyone over 50. The American Heart Association picked up on the story, and as I related it to them, I felt like I had a new heart for life, both literally and figuratively. That I was reliving life, with a real fresh approach and a renewed energy. So
Mm-hmm.
the New Heart for Life brand, they wrote an article on that. I think you might have referenced at the beginning of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And so the New Heart for Life story is now, with that backdrop, is it's never too late to change. That, as the best way I think to motivate people and to inspire people is through modeling. So I'm now competing nationally, internationally. I'm nationally ranked in the United States in the 200, 400 meters. I first event was the Maryland Senior Olympics And after the first year, I took the first year, my first race, I took the bronze medal on the 100 meters. I thought I was like, I got this. And this is another message. I didn't have anything, because the next day in the 400 meters, I pulled up lame. I couldn't even walk across the finish line because I was injured. I was trying to do one of those movie deals, but I couldn't even walk to the finish line. So under the supervision, Mike, of a coach, a team that is just a great collection of athletes, people, just spirited team. I returned to the Maryland Senior Olympics and took 4 gold medals and was recognized by the United States Track and Field Association as an All-American. Now, I say that in this context.
Can we just pause for 1 second? 4
Sure.
gold medals, brother, after open heart surgery. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care if you're going for a walk to the mailbox and back. You got 4 gold medals. Cheers to that, man.
Thank you.
Super proud of you for that. That's awesome. I got goosebumps hearing that. That's awesome.
Yep. And that's important from the perspective of, okay, so the medals are sitting upstairs and a lot more collecting dust, but it's now the message is that no matter what your bottom might be, and no matter what your passion might be, right? It is the New Heart for Life story is that there's a point where if you reconnect and you start to live a healthy, fit life and have fun with it, and you don't have to take my journey. I suggest that you don't.
Yeah.
But that I'm a fitness influencer, and I'm really I've got just an internal drive, and I know that you can understand this, Mike, and many others, that when you have something that's your purpose in life and things line up, then you know it when you know that you're taking your God-given gifts. And right. I've always, enjoyed creating awareness. I've always led sales teams, and I love coaching. I love helping people out. It just has always been part of my DNA. And now I get to take all of that and take this story of, what we had shared earlier and combine that with Masters Track and let people know that connect up and find that spark that will allow you to live a fit, active, and healthy lifestyle. Because here's why that's important. This is not easy. I mean, I don't care what age you are. Now, I'm a young 71-year-old as we speak right now. It is not easy. There are ups and downs, and you're going to be used to that comfort zone, and there's going to be some learning involved. And I've launched a video series called 21 Fitness Principles, and I talk about those principles. And those principles apply. I mean, I use them with the backdrop of how I learned the hard way and some of my journeys and travels through Masters Track. But they really are principles like any principle is.
Can you share a few? Can you share gravity with us? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, and the principles are I was going to share like gravity, because they apply no matter what your passion might be. Principle number 1 is decide. Right? You have to make a decision, and that decision's got to come from deep within. There's a principle called accountability. Like it or not, and you referenced, my grit and my motivation and my desire. Well, all truth be known, I have a difficult time getting this does not come naturally, and there's this comfort zone that we all have to kind of move out of, and it's kind of more important than ever these days. So accountability is a principle, and what that means is that, as I relate it, there's times where I don't want to go to track practice and I don't want to get out there and do what I need to do because, there's this resistance. And but knowing that there's a coach out there and my teammates, whether it be family or friends or any type of support team, you need accountability. So those are 2. I'd throw in of the 21. I'll give you 2. I'll get 2 more. I'll end with the last one. Intentional. That you just can't say, I think I'm going to go do this kind of workout, I mean, you have to put together a plan. You have to be intentional about it. And intentional is
for it to happen at a high level, you need to identify it, focus on it, and have a checks and balances system and what you're doing and how much attention you're actually giving it, for sure. And I love the word intentionality, because without that, things just kind of happen, for lack of a better term, half-assed, right?
Right. Yes, exactly. Exactly. My dad's favorite terms. And intentional is there, it's a little bit like, potential, right? Well, I have an intention to do this. Well, that's great. I mean, I was told when I was younger, I remember the nun saying, Daniel Williams, you have a lot of potential. And I always thought that was a compliment, right? It's not. It's really not. It's like that. What that meant is like, we see gifts in you, but you're not exercising.
There's 2 bars. There's potential and where you're at.
Exactly. And intentional is along the same lines. We've always heard the saying, well, they had great intentions, right? Everybody's got great intentions to get out there and plot their course, but actually intentional is 2 parts. Yeah. It's both of word and action. So I talk about being intentional, and in that spirit, it's not that just because you said I'm going to do something, and I referenced coming up lame and injuries, and there's a lot of other lessons that I learned along the way. It's going to be ups and downs and curveballs and things that you didn't expect. So within the spirit of the principles is there's no failure, Mike.
I was going to say the victory is the fact that you got back up and came out the next time.
Right. No failure. There's only feedback saying you need to do something different. And what I needed to do was get a coach and get my ego in check, and have somebody remind me that my 67-year-old body at that time is not lined up with my 16-year-old spirit. So intentional and, just those nuggets. The last one of the principles, and these are on video. I've taped them just over with this downtime. And
are these right on your website as well?
Yes, you can get to those on my website. And they're about 2-minute videos of each principle, and I'm out on the track filming. Learned a lot in terms of film production the hard way, but wanted to communicate it from the heart and have people see me and have them hear the story that's recent. The last principle is journey. Journey. And I talk about the cover of they often say that you can judge a book's cover. You can judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
And I actually use the example of way back when I picked up Steve Jobs' book, which was entitled "The Journey is the Reward." And I said, well, you can't judge a book by its cover, but I did, because I didn't need, although I did read that book, I didn't need to read that book, because that had resonated with me so much that the journey of what I'm going through, and hopefully, an inspiration to anybody that might be listening or their families or friends or loved ones, is that this is not something where the gold medal is a goal, right? I mean, that was something of accomplishment. The journey never ends. It's an ongoing quest, which means it never really gets reached. And the journey is what we remember. I don't remember the events and the medals as much as I do the people that I met in Albuquerque, New Mexico last June, when there was 13,000 of us out there for the senior games. And a woman by the name of Julia Hurricane Hawkins, who was a young 103-year-old with red, rosy cheeks, who competed in the 100-meter dash and was full of just life. Those are things along the way that when I decided, and when people make the decision, I would have sold myself short on the people that I met and the experiences that I had. I couldn't have predicted it. And so the journey is one of, it's a true north journey, right? You want to head in a certain direction, and then more will be revealed.
Yeah, I think that's so well said. I mean, there's so many different things in there. But one thing you said earlier, and I want you to know that you're actually doing this. You're doing this right now on the show, inspiring through modeling. right? I think that's a word we don't talk about, role model, or a concept that kind of gets left out. It's inspiring through your actions, not the things you're saying on video and things like that. Those are all important. But
Right.
you're out there doing it. You're not telling people,
Right.
hey, it's important. Why don't you run a 5K? And that's something you can look forward to and get your body in shape. Like,
Exactly.
you're already signed up for 3 of them before that they can sign up for 1. So you're intentional about your game plan. You're inspiring people through your modeling. And I want to get to this. I think we waited too long to get to it. You mentioned you're also gifted. You have Karen, right?
I do.
Beautiful life
Angel
partner.
Karen. Angel Karen. Yeah.
And you have 4 daughters, right? 4 daughters who are all highly successful. And now, have you had the moment of walking any of them down the aisle? Because that, as a father, has to be something that, when you were given those extra innings, you called them. Did you have that moment yet? Did you get to do that?
Well, I did walk Jackie down the aisle. She's brought us Karen and I 2 beautiful grandchildren. That was in 2007.
Okay, that was before this happened.
Right. I've got a couple weddings in front of me, and I will be in shape, and I'll be ready for that walk.
Because one of the people that inspires me, his name's Ed Milet. I've mentioned him multiple times on the show. I had the opportunity of interviewing him on another show, and he's someone I tune into his content. But he's now in great shape. He's pretty buff. He's built, right. He's kind of a little guy with a lot of muscle on him. And he was saying, he had a moment when he just was really out of tune with his health and his body and stressed out and doing the sales gig and everything. And his doctor looked at him and said, he goes, he had a daughter. He's like, do you want to walk your daughter down the aisle? And his daughter was like my daughter's age now, I believe. My daughter's 5. That'd be like my doctor telling me, which, I can understand. Right. And saying, do you want another man? I think that's how he got his attention. He goes, do you want another man to walk your daughter down the aisle? Because if you keep going on the path that you're on, that's what's going to happen.
It's a great way.
So that's why I asked you. I know how important Karen is and your daughter. Yeah. So I'm going to give you a moment, take a minute here, and shout out to your family.
So let me do an asterisk also. I'm kind of caught up in the moment. Lauren. So we've got Jackie, Lauren, Allison, and Shannon. And Lauren, I did walk down the aisle, forgive me, daughter. But so I had one before, with Jackie, and then Lauren was, they just celebrated, Jeff and Lauren just celebrated their 2-year anniversary. They're in Kansas City, and she's the marketing, she's a marketing and for a telecom company. And I did have and that was, so I had the before and after, and there's no greater feeling than being able to proudly walk your daughter down the hall. And, I believe that, it doesn't matter what prompts you to start. Like your example with, do you want to be the man that walks your daughter down the aisle, or someone else because you're going to be 6 feet under? Family is so important to me, and I'm just so blessed to have the love and support of these girls that they keep me more motivated. And I just took Shannon to the dentist this morning. It's just the little things in life now that I appreciate so much, to be able now that I'm fit, to be able to participate in their lives.
I wanted to mention it because I know you're a proud dad, and I know a lot of the reason for your fight is not a selfish reason. It comes to your family and supporting your family in many ways, being there for them. And guess what? When you were down but not out, they were by your side.
Oh, they were there. They were there. Allison was, every one of them had a role in different parts of because you need advocates when you're in a hospital. As much care as you get, you still need advocates. Allison stayed with me the first night in the ICU unit, put ice chips in my mouth. Lauren, literally, I couldn't speak, and she devised a system of the alphabet, like many rows, and she devised a system so that I would point to a row and then a letter, and I was able to communicate. And Shannon, wow. there's some things I don't remember, but Janet goes, Dad, do you remember when I bought you the ice cream the night before? You know, you said you wanted ice cream. And that was when they ballooned me up. I said, honey, I don't think I remember that. But they were all there in their own way. And
Awesome.
God bless them. And I don't ever want to put any of them through that process again, anywhere close.
We got about 5 to 10 minutes max here. I want to make sure we get to some of these questions that I feel are going to help our audience out, which is why you and I agreed to get together today, is not to only help each other out, but to make sure we can help out other people. And that's why I started the show. Is I can only influence one person if it's internal. I can influence 2 people if I get a cup of coffee or virtual coffee now through quarantine. And with the podcast, we can inspire many more people. That's my goal. So I want you to share with us, talk about the quarantine and the pandemic, which is still currently going on. We're recording this in August of 2020. Mm-hmm. What is one new skill or positive takeaway that you have from quarantine?
One new skill. Well, I've taken the opportunity during the quarantine. At first, I was looking forward to competing in Toronto in July, Veterans Games in June, number of events over the summer. So I actually went into a mini depression at the very beginning, maybe 3 or 4 days. And then I decided that, this is an opportunity and I need to keep myself, and I think this is a message for all of us. We need to take advantage of this new normal. And, I took on a couple projects. One of them was I went through the 10,000 plus photos that are out in the cloud and got those organized and figured out where they were. I picked up genealogy and went back and did some ancestry.com on our family history and, took that project on. And of course, taped the 21 fitness principles, which took about a month and a half. Editing those and learning editing software. And then Mike, the other thing that I took on, and I think it's just keeping our antennas up for opportunities to do some things in this new normal that we would not necessarily be able to do, is, back to the veterans, the veteran suicide awareness. Right now, we're losing on average 22 veterans a day to suicide through, post-traumatic stress and just, it's just, and so there is something like the ALS cold ice bucket challenge of 4, 5, 6 years back. They have what they call the hashtag 22 push-up challenge. So hashtag 22 push-up challenge, 22 push-ups for 22 days. In honor of creating awareness for suicide prevention of veterans. And so I just completed my first series of 22, and I'll be starting another series here shortly after I recover and get some more strength back. So I've tried to take this new normal and do some things that I normally wouldn't have time to do or that I wasn't aware of. And just feel blessed with that opportunity that's been granted until we get back to the, other side of this horrific pandemic.
Appreciate you sharing that. I think that just goes to show that you have 2 options. You can kind of kick back and take it easy when people are kind of taking more time to be home, or you can kick it in overdrive and take that extra time home and build something like your challenge that you created, or the 21 different steps. And now you're doing the push-up challenge to help out with PTSD, right? So, I mean, it's just incredible the things that you're doing, that you're completely involved with. And what I was thinking about while you're sharing all that is wondering, what would the ultimate accomplishment be for you? So it doesn't need to be something you already achieved, but like, what would you want, that moment to be like, man, I did get here?
I'll try to answer that as best I can, but I did trigger something. I think it's important. In July, in terms of during this pandemic, but it started way before then. I talked to you about Vietnam, and what I didn't share is I went out to the University of Maryland and I totally fell on my face. I thought I was in Disneyland. I had no business being out of college after, 8 years of parochial school, 4 years of military high school, and under a military dad,
Mm-hmm.
and so I completed my college degree and graduated from the University of Phoenix. We had the first virtual. There's a lot of first virtuals ceremony, and that was held in May. So I received my Bachelor of Science in Business Management, and it took 50 years to put that all together. I've done, and that we talk a lot about my dad, just like Larry Fitzgerald in that commercial. Anybody can recall that? He called his mother, who had passed, and said, "Mom, I finally fulfilled my promise to you. I've received my college degree, and I'm going to carry it on to my children, the legacy of never giving up." So I was able to, at the end of a very successful career, put a bow around that and really deliver a gift to my mother in heaven
Mm-hmm.
of a college degree.
Accomplishing that college degree. That's awesome, man. Such a
Yeah.
special thing. And
Now, tee me up with that question again. I was a little caught up in the emotion.
No, it's okay. My message or my mission for this show, talk about it, always talk about it at the end here. And what I'd love you to do is deliver a message to our audience to inspire them to be brave and bold in pursuit of their dreams.
I will. And I do that in the context that there's so much inspiration out there, motivation and posters, and you can't go anywhere where you're not bumping into somebody who's trying to uplift the spirits, and that's all well and good. I will leave the audience with something that I believe is they can take away. A nugget, right? That they can take away. And the most complex thing in life is to keep it simple. So I'm going to keep it simple. And my inspirational message is to think of the word ACT. 3 letters. Stands for action changes things.
Yeah.
If you hold on to ACT and keep in mind that you have to take action, whatever it might be. And then when you fall back, you've got to fall forward, right? Or bounce back forward. So I would leave the audience with the word ACT. Action changes things. And in those times where the committee's working on us, and it does, and wants us to hang in our comfort zone, just think ACT. Just do something. And that action does not have, some of the things we've talked about, they all were accomplished through baby steps. So just start with something very small, and that sense of accomplishment will gain you the momentum to carry you through the journey.
Yeah, everything starts as a snowball, and then you build it up, and it's rolling down the hill, and they call that the flywheel. Once it gets moving, it's very difficult to slow it down because of the momentum. I love that. ACT, as easy as that. Action changes things with fitness influencer Dan Williams. We have less than 1 minute left. If you can leave us with 3 things that you're grateful for, most grateful for.
Well, I would have to start with my health, because without my health, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I wouldn't be walking those 2 daughters and soon to be another 2 daughters down the aisle. So it's often, said too much and we get numb to it, but without your health, we have nothing. So I am so grateful for my health. I'm grateful for Karen to have a loving partner that's been with me through this ride, that continues to stay with me through this ride in terms of every day. And blessed to have been a divine appointment meeting her, and anybody that's lucky to have found their soul partner, and somebody that, especially during times like this, that can allow you to carry on, that you can have fun with and connect with and have things in common. So everybody's got a soul partner that's out there, and I was fortunate and blessed to have met Karen, and then Jackie, Lauren, Allison, and Shannon. And these girls are just have inspired me. They do things in their lives that I'm just so proud to be a dad of theirs, but also to watch their accomplishments,
Mm.
and just to have that part of my family. So I'm blessed with those. Would be my top three.
I love it. Can't go wrong with those three too. I mean, you know, we all know the stability of having strong women in our lives, and appreciate you sharing that. Thank you so much for being here. I'm grateful for your friendship. I'm grateful for your time here today. I know my audience benefited from you being here, sharing your story. Guys, check it out. Dan Williams, New Heart for Life. Again, that's the number 4. And on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, it's at New Heart for Life. And you can connect and link up with him on LinkedIn at Dan Williams. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Dan, thank you for being here today.
To your new heart for life.
Thank you. I love you guys, and thank you so much for tuning in. Check out more show notes and information on each episode at mikeduppodcast.com, MIKED uppodcast.com. We're powered by Social Chameleon. You guys know what to do. Be great and be grateful.